Association.
For American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt held a briefing today and talked about the search for Nancy Guthrie in Arizona.
The president and I were watching the press conference about the search for Savannah Guthrie's mother, which is just a heartbreaking situation. The president, as you all know, spoke directly with Savannah yesterday and told her that the federal government is here to help. Any requests that are made by state and local officials in the search of Miss Guthrie will absolutely be accommodated.
Pima County, Arizona Sheriff Chris Nanos gave an update today on Nancy Guthrie, who has been missing since last weekend. She was last seen Saturday night when she was dropped off at her Tucson home by family after having dinner with them, according to the Sheriff's Department. Nanos said no suspect has been identified.
We're sharing every piece of information, all the data we can to get this thing solved. And it's important that my partners in law enforcement know and understand their roles, because it is a very large, complex investigation with a lot of moving parts. And we're at that phase now where sometimes we're waiting, right? We're waiting for analysis. We're waiting for lab reports.
Nancy's daughter, Savannah Guthrie, was emotional during a video message.
We want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them. And we continue to believe that she feels them too. Talk to her and you'll see.
Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old and needs essential medication, according to her family. Democrat governors released a joint statement today saying that Americans should have the right to vote without interference from the federal government. The statement comes after President Trump said on a podcast earlier this week that Republicans should take over elections in some jurisdictions. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the president was referring to a push that voters prove they are U.S. citizens. Iran and the U.S. are to hold talks tomorrow in Oman. It has been reported that the White House is very skeptical about the talks in terms of their success. President Trump has kept pressure on Iran by moving aircraft carriers and other military assets to the Gulf and suggesting America could attack Iran over the killing of peaceful demonstrators. Steve Daines is a U.S. Senator from Montana and joined Washington Watch to talk about the discussions with Iran.
This leopard has the same spots as it's always had, this current regime in Iran. Let's just step back and remember that they've labeled us as the big Satan. They label Israel as the little Satan. They are the primary state sponsor of terror in the world. They are singularly behind Hamas, behind Hezbollah, behind the Houthis. Tony, we need moral clarity at this moment around who the good guys are. You know, there's good guys, there's bad guys, and there's really, really, really bad guys.
The Nebraska legislature has failed to advance a bill that blocked protections for women facing trafficking and abortion. More from AFN's Chris Woodward.
LB 669 came up 2 votes short. Nate Grotz of Nebraska Family Alliance says 2 pro-choice senators filibustered the bill and blocked what he calls common sense protections.
This was a really simple bill that just said if a woman is seeking an abortion and she's at an abortion clinic, that before performing the abortion, the clinic needs to make sure that they appropriately and properly screen for signs of abuse, domestic violence, or human trafficking, and provide her with resources, the National Human Trafficking Hotline number, and the opportunity to make a confidential phone call if she chooses.
Because the bill failed to advance, Gross says that it's unlikely to get rescheduled during this year's session. However, Nebraska Family Alliance does not intend this to be the final word.
We'll be looking for any and every avenue that we can try to attach this bill or amend other legislation to get these important protections and safeguards in place, because this was a really simple but important bill. We know that abortion and sex trafficking are inextricably linked, and women and children in Nebraska deserve better.
That is all our time for now. See more news at afn.net.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net. Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Nurse Mama Show, prescribing hope for healthy families here on American Family Radio. Here's your host, Professor, Pediatric Nurse Practitioner, and Mom of 4, Dr. Jessica Peck.
Well, hey there, friends. Welcome to my favorite time of day, talking to some of my favorite people here, prescribing hope for healthy families. Listen, we have got a great guest who is going to join us here in just a little bit. We have none other than Dr. Gary Chapman of the 5 Love Languages, who's going to join us in a little bit and talk about the 5 love languages. And in the meantime, I have some things I'd like to share with you about Valentine's Day. We have Valentine's Day that is just coming around the corner. Now, I know some of you are thinking, oh yeah, I've got some great plans. And some of you are thinking, ugh, why'd she have to say that? And some of you are thinking, what? Like, it wasn't even on my radar. But listen, let's reframe this as an opportunity. There's an opportunity for us to love those around us. And after all, that's what we're commanded to do as Christians. We're commanded to love our neighbors as ourselves. And Valentine's Day doesn't belong only to couples. It actually belongs to the kingdom of God, as does every day of the year. And there can be some emotional complexity. There are people who have feelings about Valentine's Day, like I said. Some are indifferent, some love it, some really, really hate it. For some people, it's joyful, but others, it's painful. For some people, it's just awkward. It might be lonely, it might be quietly heavy, and there are people who are often overlooked on Valentine's Day. You may be thinking, if you're married, what do I get my spouse? If you're dating someone or you're in a relationship, but the people who maybe are overlooked on Valentine's Day are widows and widowers. That is really close on my heart. Single moms and dads, singles who desire marriage but are still waiting to meet that right person. Maybe young people who feel like, okay, I don't know what my future holds. And they just feel like they are not yet met that person. And there's children who are still forming their understanding of what love is and what worth is. Now, Valentine's Day is not a test of whether or not you are loved. And it feels that way. It feels like I am loved. Look, I got flowers delivered at work. I got chocolate delivered at work. Let this be a symbol to all that I am loved. Valentine's Day is really an opportunity to give love. That's what it's really about. And we know from 1 John 4:19, we love because he first loved us. And when we look at Valentine's Day, it is so consumeristic. And when we look at how much people are spending, which I'll talk about in a little bit, it is astronomical. But here's the thing. The heart of Valentine's Day actually began with sacrificial love, with Christ-shaped love, not heart-shaped love or romance marketing. Valentine's Day, if you didn't know, is named after Saint Valentine. But actually, history suggests there were likely multiple Christian martyrs, maybe multiple Christian martyrs named Valentine, who lived in the 3rd century during the Roman Empire. Now, what they shared in common was this: they were faithful Christians who loved others at a great personal cost, even to the cost of their life. And one of the most widely told accounts describes Valentine of Rome. This was a priest who lived during the reign of Emperor Claudius II, and Claudius believed unmarried men made better soldiers and outlawed marriage for young men. And so Valentine, convinced that the marriage was sacred, it was God ordained, he continued to marry couples in secret. And when he was discovered, Valentine was imprisoned and eventually executed. And this traditionally is the traditional date for his execution is February 14th. Now, that is not something that we think about when we think about Valentine's Day. You don't walk down the aisle at the grocery store of all the hearts and think, oh yes, oh dear Valentine, he died on this day. We don't think that. And whether every detail can be historically verified or not, the central truth remains that Valentine's legacy and the legacy of Valentine's Day is rooted in Christian values like conviction and courage and sacrificial love, not romance just to make you feel good. And for early Christian martyrs and for martyrs today, it's not about emotion or indulgence or marketing in some sick sense. It was about witness. That's what we are seeing. Valentine's love was faithful in persecution. It was grounded in God's design for covenant and community, which we know that marriage is God's design for the family. And it was willing to suffer for the good of others. And this aligns with a biblical understanding of love. We know from 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, it always protects, always trusts, always perseveres. And I talked with Dr. Chapman last time he was on the show about the context of that, how it's often used at weddings, but there's so much rich biblical truth there. And so when we look at the origins of Valentine's Day as martyrdom, we see the connection between Valentine's Day and romantic love really came much later during the Middle Ages. And in medieval Europe, it was believed that birds began to pair off in mid-February, according to what I could find. And poets started linking February 14th, like Chaucer, with courtly love. And then over time, people started writing notes to each other and giving little tokens and little gifts. It was just more and more common among friends and admirers. Now, these early Valentines weren't exclusively romantic. They were about friendship and loyalty and just admiring someone. It was a much broader understanding of love than today's version is. And then we have this modern shift and where we start to commercialize the holiday, and we have mass-produced cards, we have candy, we have flowers, we have jewelry. And most of all, in the recent couple of decades, it comes with this social pressure to somehow perform romance. And the things that have been lost along the way are the idea of love as an act of service, love as an act of sacrifice, and love as being faithful even when things are really hard, and still demonstrating godly character and godly sacrifice and love, and a Christ-like sacrifice and love. And so really we have an opportunity for families today. We can reclaim Valentine's Day. So if you're one of those who is indifferent, or you're thinking, maybe you're even dreading it, it can be a moment of intentional Christ-reflecting love rather than just consumer pressure or social guilt. So when we understand the roots of Valentine's Day, how it happened, we know it's not about who bought the biggest gift or who got asked out or who is doing what, whose husband is taking them on a really romantic date and whose is ordering pizza. It's not about that at all. It's about honoring covenant. It's about serving your community and showing care, loving the overlooked, practicing generosity and presence and kindness. From 1 John 3:18, let us not love with words or tongue, but with action and in truth. And so, again, Valentine's Day didn't start with chocolates or roses. It started with a Christian who believed that love was worth defending, even when it cost him everything. And that really gives us such an opportunity. I think about John 15:13, greater love has no man than this, to lay down your life for your friends. So we have the scripture to give us a fuller definition of love. Biblical love is sacrificial. It's not, worldly love is self-centered. Biblical love is intentional. Worldly love is performative. Biblical love is faithful, and worldly love is fleeting. So we see culture says love makes me feel special. Love makes me feel good. Love makes me feel seen. Christ says love is to lay down your life for someone else. That is a really big contrast. And there's some people that really, especially as I said earlier, can be overlooked on Valentine's Day. And I want to give a special call out to the widows and widowers out there. And Valentine's Day can just be a bittersweet day. It can be a sad day, even if it's been many, many years since their spouse passed. And I know our children's ministry at church for many years would write letters to widows and widowers and Valentine's Day cards. I know my kids have participated in that ministry as well. And it's something that's so simple, but just that gesture of you are seen and known and loved by God. That is an amazing thing. Just a handwritten note acknowledging remembrance, honoring their spouse, just an invitation to join you. Maybe you ask them to join you for a Valentine's Day dinner, or maybe you do something for them, an act of service, just to show a demonstration of love. Is there a widow or widower in your life where you can send a Valentine's Day gesture to? That would be a really beautiful thing to do. And a lot of times we think that we have to get them give a really nice gift, or that with the gift that we have to give is to fix their grief, to make it go away, make it better. That's what we feel like. Sometimes the gift is just honoring their grief. It's just honoring that loss that they have and honoring the love that they had that was so special and so wonderful that it's worth celebrating and worth celebrating and there. Okay, I'm just getting a note. I'm just getting a note that Dr. Chapman is about to join us, so we're going to go ahead and pull him onto the show. But let me end with just an encouragement to reach out to someone in your life. Look for someone that you can serve. Look for a widow or widower, single parent. Look for that single young person in your life who's still looking for that right person, and see what you can do to give them an act of service. Well, when we're going to talk about the 5 love languages today, and I think that we have Dr. Gary Chapman, who is joining us right now. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a pastor. For many of you, he absolutely needs no introduction. He's a trusted voice on relationships for more than 3 decades. He is best known as the creator of The 5 Love Languages, a New York Times bestseller that has transformed how millions of people around the world understand love and communication and connection. There's more than 20 million copies sold and translations in more than 50 languages, and his work over many decades now has helped couples and families and communities learn how to love with greater intention and grace. And most recently, he has written The Love Language That Matters Most. Dr. Chapman, we are so grateful to have you back with us today. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you. I am glad to be back with you again.
I am too. You've just been so encouraging to me, and you have a new resource out, The Love Language That Matters Most, and it helps people better understand and practice the original 5 love languages. So just in case there's someone out there listening who has been on a deserted island for the last, 20 years or so, and maybe has not heard of the 5 love languages, could you give them a quick review and why this update that you have is so important?
Yes, what I discovered years ago before I wrote the book is that what makes one person feel loved does not make another person feel loved. We have different love languages, and many couples have wrestled with that through the years. One would be saying, I'm showing that I love her. Look, I wash the dishes, I vacuum the floors, I wash her car, I get gas in her car, I change the baby's diaper. I mean, why wouldn't she feel loved? And she says, I know you do those things. You're a hard worker. I appreciate all of that, but we don't ever talk. I mean, we don't ever talk. We don't ever sit down with each other and share life with each other. And so it was that realization that I heard that over and over in my office, and I knew there had to be a pattern to what I was hearing. And so I really just went through several years of notes that I made when I was counseling and asked myself, when someone said, I just don't feel any love coming from my spouse, what did they want? What were they complaining about? And their answers fell into 5 categories. And I later called them the 5 love languages. And I started using that in my counseling, that if you want her to feel love, you've got to learn to speak your love in her language. And if you want him to feel love, you've got to learn to speak his love language. And couples would come back after they discovered each other's language and started speaking it and just say, Gary, this is changing everything. I mean, the whole climate's different now. And so here are the 5 languages that I discovered. Number 1 is words of affirmation. You look nice in that outfit. I really appreciate what you did. You know, one of the things I like about you is just using words to affirm them for things that you really do appreciate about them. And then there's acts of service, doing things for them that you know they would like for you to do. The things like I was mentioning, washing dishes, vacuuming floors, washing the car, or changing the baby's diaper. That's a
You
big
know what,
act of
Dr.
service.
Chapman? Yes, absolutely. I love that. And we're going to leave it right here. We're going to our first break, but you don't want to miss it, because when we come back, there's 3 more love languages to learn about and so much more that will help you with Dr. Gary Chapman and the love languages that matter most. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Your Caregiver Minute with Peter Rosenberger.
What is the one thing that every life insurance representative will ask of every potential client? If something happened to you, what would happen to your family? Now, that night, after you sign up for life insurance, you get to have peace of mind knowing that you did what was necessary with the resources that you had. Now, what if that same life insurance representative showed back up again the next day and said, what happens to your loved one in the event of your demise? You said, well, I just took care of that yesterday. No, that was yesterday. Now we got to do it again today. And we're going to do it again the next day and the next day. And this is going to go all the way until one of you all dies. We have to constantly be thinking, what needs to happen to make sure this person is taken care of in case not only if I die, if I sprain my ankle, if I get the flu. Caregivers don't get to call in sick. That is why I do this program.
Hope for the Caregiver with Peter Rosenberger. Saturday mornings at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on American Family Radio.
It's so easy to politicize abortion, but the reality is there's a precious life at stake, and that little life doesn't have a voice. All that little life has is a heartbeat, and it can be heard as early as 5 weeks on ultrasound. That's where Preborn steps in. Preborn is a voice for the little ones.
They do an ultrasound, and that's when everything changed. Because when I saw my baby, and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it.
Preborn network of clinics offers free ultrasounds to women in crisis while showering them with God's love. This powerful combination doubles a baby's chance at life and has helped to rescue over 300,000 babies. To learn more about Preborn's life-saving work, call pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby, or visit preborn.com/AFR. All gifts are tax deductible.
The enemy wants to destroy anything of God's, especially mankind who is made in God's image.
What would it be like if every person knew that they were created in the image of God?
We're talking about people loved by the Father, people for whom Jesus died.
We have to stand on God's truth.
We hear in culture all the time, we need to find ourselves. We need to go find our identity. We are already defined. We are known before the foundations of the world.
In His Image is a life-changing film that has helped people break free from the grip of evil. It will take you through Scripture to show the truth, and its powerful testimonies will destroy Satan's attempts to pervert God's perfect design.
We now know with the genome of all of the DNA that there is no propensity towards a genetic disposition to homosexual behavior.
Watch it for the first time or again with someone who needs to see it. Get the 2-DVD set at resources.afa.net.
We got CDs, tapes, and videos, radio and TV shows, conferences, retreats, and seminars. We got books and magazines to read on everything from A to Z, and a web to surf from anywhere we are. But I hope with all this information buzzing through our brains, that we will not let our hearts forget the most important thing. It's love, 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 love. It's all about love, 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 love. Everything else comes down to this. Nothing any higher on the list than love. It's all about love.
Welcome back, friends. That is All About Love with Stephen Curtis Chapman. And if you heard him saying CDs, yes, he did. And there are so many things that change in the world around us. But one thing that does not change is that February 14th is coming, just like it does every year. And with Valentine's Day approaching, many of us are thinking about love. And you may be thinking about candy hearts or dinner plans or flowers or gifts or what is my wife expecting me to do this year? And in fact, recent data shows that about 3/4 of U.S. adults plan to celebrate Valentine's Day in some way. More than half of those with a romantic partner, but half of those with friends and family that they love. Galentine's is all the rage, where girls get together and celebrate friendship. And the spending on this is absolutely astronomical. From the National Retail Federation, it is estimated that Americans spend about $27 billion on Valentine's gifts and experiences, with an average of $190 each. Oh my goodness, that is giving me palpitations there. But as believers, we know that real love, the kind that Christ calls us to, goes deeper than just chocolates and Valentine's. And that's what we're talking about today, the love language that matters most. And I'm so overjoyed to have Dr. Gary Chapman with us today talking about the 5 love languages. And right before the break, Dr. Chapman, you were talking about the 5 love languages. For those who may just not be familiar, you've done 2. And so let's pick it up right there.
Okay, the first 2, one was words of affirmation, one was acts of service. Actions speak louder than words for those people. Number 3 is gifts, which you've been talking about in Valentine's Day. I studied cultures all over the world. We've never discovered a culture where gift giving is not an expression of love. It's universal to give gifts. And God is our example. I mean, all good gifts, the Bible says, come down from the Father of lights above. So giving gifts. And then number 4 is quality time. Giving the person your undivided attention. I do not mean sitting there watching television together. Someone else has your attention. TV is off, computer is down, we're not answering our phone. We're giving each other our undivided attention. We're sharing life, our thoughts, our feelings, our desires, our dreams, our frustrations, whatever. We're sharing life with each other, undivided attention. And number 5 is physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical touch. That's why we pick up babies, hold them, kiss them, and cuddle them. Long before the baby understands the meaning of the word love, the baby feels love by physical touch. So the basic concept is that out of those 5, each of us, married or single, young or old, we all have what I call a primary love language. One of those speaks more deeply to us emotionally than the other 4. We're not going to turn away any one of them. They're all fine. But if we don't receive love in our primary language, we will not feel loved, even though the person may be loving us in another language.
Well, Dr. Chapman, I was sharing with you during the break that I took the assessment, the new assessment that comes out with this book, The Love Language That Matters Most, because I've known about love languages for a long time, followed your work for a long time, and read the 5 love languages for children. That was really instrumental in learning to love my kids, because each one of my 4 children was different and had a different love language, and learning how to express love to them in a way they would best receive it. And what I had shared with you is that I was really shocked to find that my love language had completely changed from when I first started this, maybe 20 years ago. And my love language, my primary love language used to be quality time. But when I took it this time, it was very clearly words of affirmation. And when I started thinking about that, I had shared with you that I thought maybe that is evidence of a woman who has spent the last 15 years raising teenagers and has heard for 15 years, Mom, oh, come on, Mom, why? Oh, no, don't, Mom. And I embarrass people by breathing, which is just a natural part of having teenagers. There's lots of great things too, but teens are not known for their strength in words of affirmation. And that may be something that somebody wants to revisit. They may have known about the love languages and think, oh, I know what mine is, but it's changed. And you said you see that.
Yeah, it's pretty common for our love language to change at different stages of life. Things like you described, or like a mother that has 2 preschool children. Acts of service may not have been her language, but during those years, it's probably going to jump to the top because she's overwhelmed. She needs help. So yeah, seasons of life and circumstances also Your spouse gets off the phone and starts crying, and you say, "Honey, what's wrong?" And she said, "I just got a message that my mother died." Physical touch may not be her language, but at that moment, in that circumstance, embracing her and let her weep and let her say, "I'm with you, honey, I'm with you," is probably the most important thing you could do. So in that circumstance, another love language jumps to the top. So.
And that circumstance, and for different people, because the love languages don't just apply. This is not just a language for husband and wife, for romantic couples. As I shared, I've used this with my kids. How can people use the love languages in everyday relationships around them?
Well, I think whatever the relationship, if it's a close relationship, listen, we want to feel loved by the significant people in our lives. Almost everyone agrees it's one of our deepest emotional needs to feel loved. And so whether it's a marriage, whether it's children, whether it's a close friend, whether it's your aging parents, or whether it's somebody at work that you have a close relationship with. At work, we don't usually call it love. We call it appreciation. I wrote a book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. But it's the same emotional need. It's the need to be valued as a person. I'm not just a cog in a machine. I'm a person. They care about me. So it's one of our basic needs, and that's why it's so important. I think that's why the original book has been so successful. As you mentioned, 20 million copies have sold in 50 languages around the world. But I think this new book is also going to help the people who have read the original book. Because 2 of the questions that I've gotten through the years is, they said, "Dr. Chapman, you mentioned that there are dialects to these languages, but you don't explain that and what they are. And you've mentioned that personalities interface with the love languages, but you didn't go into that." So in this new book, we're going into both of those. We're laying out dialects within each of the languages, that is, different ways to speak those, because we have not only a primary language, but we have a key dialect that really, really speaks deeply to us. So I think this book's going to help a lot of people who've already read the original book.
Well, I'm already feeling curious. Give us a little sneak preview of what you mean by dialect and personality. I think that will be really instructive for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, in spoken language, there are different dialects. I speak English with a Southern accent, okay? You go to Boston, it's altogether different in Boston.
Yeah.
Same language, different dialect. And so just take gifts, for example. Because Valentine's Day is coming up, we often give gifts. There are fanciful gifts. I mean, really nice, super things, maybe jewelry or something really, really fancy and nice. And then there's functional gifts. And for a person, if this is their dialect, they'd much rather have, a new coffee maker or a new vacuum cleaner than they would some fanciful gift, And then there's sentimental gifts. Maybe a framed photo that you made somewhere along the line, something you all were doing together, and it's a memory, and you present that to them. It's a sentimental gift. And so when you read the book, you'll get all of these dialects on each of the languages, and when you take the quiz that you're talking about, the premium quiz, you find out which dialect or dialects that are really more meaningful to you than the others. Yeah.
Well, what I'm getting from that, I speak Texan, Dr. Chapman. I have a Texas accent, but apparently I speak fanciful when it comes to gifts, and that is my dialect. And you're telling me that there is someone out there who would love to receive a vacuum cleaner, but you better make sure before you give that. I want it on record. I am not endorsing anybody to give a vacuum cleaner for Valentine's Day, unless you read this book and take the assessment and feel very confident moving forward. But Dr. Chapman, I think one of the greatest takeaways from your work is that this is not a book that you read, the love languages, all of that work that you've done. You don't read it to serve yourself. You can read it to understand yourself. But it really teaches you how to love others. And then, others will love you in return. That usually is an investment that yields, that has such a great yield. But tell us about that perspective, because that is the godly perspective. It's not, okay, our temptation is to take this book to our spouse, right? And you need to read this book, and then you need to do this for me. How do we shift that focus and really think, okay, how can I love others well, even if I maybe don't feel very loved?
Yeah. We are all by nature self-centered. There's a good part to that. We feed ourselves, we get sleep, we get exercise, we take care of ourselves. But when that becomes selfishness, it's the opposite of love. Because biblical love begins with an attitude. It doesn't begin with a feeling, it begins with an attitude. Let this attitude be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Who, though he was God, he didn't demand his rights. He emptied himself and became a man. And when he got on level ground, he stepped down further and died for us. Let that attitude be in you. So the attitude of love, we choose our attitudes. We don't choose our feelings. We choose how we respond to our feelings, but we choose our attitudes. So you choose an attitude of love. It's the attitude of, in a marriage, I want to enrich your life. I want to do whatever I can to help you become the person you believe God wants you to be. And so you bring that into the whole picture of love. It means I want to make sure that you feel that I love you. I want that need to be met. I'm there for you. I love you. I care about you. And so the whole love language thing helps you do that. It gives you information, but it doesn't. You have to choose the attitude. There are people in a marriage who are selfish. Yeah. They're in that marriage for their partner to make them happy. I mean, how many times have I heard this when people are at the point of divorce and they say, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't felt loved by you in 10 years. I am simply not happy in this relationship and I'm out of here. Selfishness. I'm in this relationship for you to make me happy. No, as a Christian, I'm in this relationship to do everything I can to meet your needs. And if we take the initiative, even with someone that's not loving us, we take the initiative and learn how to speak their love language in a very meaningful way, you're doing the most powerful thing you can do to influence them in a positive way. See, we influence each other every single day, either negatively or positively. There's no more positive impact you can have on a spouse that's not loving you than to love them consistently every week for 6 months, no matter what. Chances are before that 6 months is over, they're going to be drawn to start loving you. The Bible says we love God because he first loved us. We didn't start the relationship with God. He started it. And so in the marriage relationship, that same principle is true. If one of you chooses with the help of God to love that other person in a meaningful way, love stimulates love. And there's a good chance they're going to reciprocate down the road. Not in 3 weeks, no, but when they see it's a way of life, and this is really your efforts to encourage and to meet their needs, people are drawn to people who love them.
Well, Dr. Chapman, you just delivered some really tough truths, and it may have been softened a little by your Southern accent, but it's still some tough truths there when you're talking about selfishness. Now, we'll set aside issues of abuse, of infidelity, biblical grounds. We'll set that aside for now. We're just talking about the everyday just annoyances, just I don't like you anymore. I don't feel like I love you anymore. I'm not happy. I deserve to be happy. These are the messages that we get. And even so far as I'm going to say this as gently as I can, as saying things like convincing ourselves that my children would be happier if I was happier. So leaving this is going to make me happy and that's going to make them happy. This is really dangerous ground that we're on here. And many times people feel, you talk about this concept of a love tank, and they just feel like my love tank is empty. I got nothing left. How do we fill up our love tanks and continue to love even when maybe we feel in a relationship that's in a really tough season?
Well, I think as Christians, we have outside help. The scriptures say the love of God is poured into our hearts by the Holy Spirit. So we can say to God, Lord, you know how I feel, and you know I don't feel loved, but I'm married to this person, and I'm in the best position of anyone in the world to express your love to them. So I'm opening my heart to you. Pour your love into me and let me be your agent for loving them. You see, we have outside help. It's not natural to do that. It's natural to love people who love you. But God loved us when we were unlovely and sent Christ to die for us. And he's not only our example, he's the one that gives us the power to do that. cannot tell you how many times I've seen marriages turned around when I give us what I call a 6-month experiment. And that's what I just described. Speaking their primary love language in the most meaningful way. If you know the dialects, even more effective, for a 6-month period, and just see what happens. And I can't guarantee that everyone will respond, because listen, there are people that spit in God's face and He loves them every single day. So I can't guarantee, but I can tell you, you can look yourself in the mirror after 6 months, and you can look God in the face and say, thank you, God. If there's anything else I could do, I want to do it.
I feel like that gentle, simple truth is like a lightning bolt. That is really transformational. Listen, there's so much more to talk about. The love language that matters most. Dr. Gary Chapman, written with Les and Leslie Parrott. We'll be right back with more after this break.
Hello, my name is Andy Miller, and I'm the president of Wesley Biblical Seminary based in Ridgeland, Mississippi. We are developing trusted leaders for faithful churches, and we do that based in the authority of Scripture and in the reality that Christians can be transformed. We do that also through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. We'd love for you to learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary at wbs.edu, where we're developing trusted leaders for faithful churches.
At Blue Mountain Christian University, undergraduate and graduate degrees can be completed fully online across a range of academic fields. From business and education to technology and healthcare, programs are designed for learners who want the flexibility of online study without coming to campus. Courses are offered in 8-week sessions. Learn more at bmc.edu. Move mountains at Blue Mountain Christian University.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven. You can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted, it works, it's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt, and it stressed me out. But what I thought was a solution turned out to be a problem. I kept hearing ads about debt settlement that seemed too good to be true. And actually, it was. When I called, they told me to stop paying my bills. That didn't sound right to me at all, so I hung up. Later, I found out that debt settlement is bad, real bad. Then I learned that there is a right way to pay off your credit cards. It's called a debt management program from the great team at Trinity. Trinity had a plan. In the end, I paid off my bills, I saved thousands, and I even improved my credit score.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-788-1813.
I wasn't made to be tending a grave. I was called by name, born and raised back to life again. I was made for more. So why would I make a bed in my shame when a fountain of grace is running my way? I know I am yours, and I was made for more.
Welcome back, friends. You were made for more. That's by Bethel Music, and you were made You were made for more. We're talking about how you can love others more in your life. As we see Valentine's Day coming around the corner, love is in the air. Love is in the aisles of the grocery store, and love has reminders everywhere from what are you going to do. But it is very clear that how we feel loved and how we show love are not always the same thing or received the same way. The way that we feel loved is not the same way that our spouse feels loved. And many people assume that if I know their love languages, you can say, I have been following Dr. Gary Chapman for years and I know the 5 love languages. Mine is this, hers is this. I know them, that I know them, and I can speak it fluently, but that doesn't mean that your relationship is perfect, because relationships are built on progress and consistency and grace. And there are definitely seasons of life that will throw you curveballs, that will walk you through valleys, that will present you with something that you didn't ever expect. And in that time, there's no perfection. There's no performance that's going to fix it. And so the question for us today is, how do we live out love practically and intentionally in ways that honor both God's design and the person who is before us? I am delighted to be talking to Dr. Gary Chapman again, talking about his book, The Love Language That Matters Most. So, Dr. Chapman, let's talk about this concept of mastery. We can kind of almost feel prideful, feeling like, okay, now we know the love languages, we show them. How do you tell when you're moving in the right direction? You talked about the 6-month challenge that you would have. Where's the line between mastery and not being prideful and assuming that you've arrived?
Yeah, I don't ever talk about a perfect marriage. I talk about a growing marriage, because marriages are either growing or they are regressing. We never stand still. We're either making progress in having a better marriage, or we're just drifting apart. And so the purpose of anything I've ever written is not to have a perfect marriage. It's to have a growing marriage. And I do think that this new book, The Love Language That Matters Most, is going to help people who already have the basic concept down, but it's going to help them because it's going to help them identify the dialect within that language that's going to be meaningful to them. And it's also going to help them understand each other's personality and how that interfaces with speaking their love language. So, and let me just say this too, because people say after they see the title, The Love Language That Matters Most, they say, well, what is the love language that matters most? And what I say is, and we make this clearly at the beginning of the book, the love language that matters most is the love language of your partner or the other person. Not yours, theirs. We're trying to put the focus where it needs to be, on the other person, okay?
That's right. That's absolutely right. Well, tell us a little bit about that with personality. I was just sharing with you that my husband and I, have very different personalities, and that's what draws you together. Like, I take myself too seriously. He loves to have fun, and those things that draw you together then become why can't you ever be serious? Why can't you ever lighten up and have fun? So what are those personality traits that we have that we can learn more to lean into that love language?
Well, let's just take the simple trait of extrovert and introvert, for example. So you know that your spouse's language is words of affirmation, but they are an introvert. And so you get this idea that you're at a party or you're with a group of friends, and so you're just going to tell everybody how wonderful your husband is or your wife is. Just going to pour it all out. Well, they're going to be okay with you. They're not going to hit you over the head, but I can tell you this, inside they're thinking, oh, honey, this is not the place for that. This should be in private. Don't say all this stuff in front of other people. And you're serious, so you're trying to do, something really big for them. But you're failing to recognize they're an introvert. They don't thrive on being put up there in front of everybody and talked about them, Or take another example, quality time. So your spouse's quality time. But let's say that he's an improviser, but she's a planner. She's a manager. So one Friday night, he says to his wife, honey, how about tomorrow morning we get up early and we go take a hike up at Pilot Mountain and just spend the morning together, just you and me. For him, he knows that's her language, quality time. Man, he thinks he's doing something great. And she says, honey, tomorrow is Saturday. I've got Saturday already planned. He said, oh, honey, you can do that next Saturday. See, he thinks he's doing something wonderful for her. She feels like he's putting pressure on her to do something, you know.
Who's going to watch the kids? Like, what are we going to eat? The planner in me is already thinking.
Yeah, so she's fine to take a hike, but let's plan it ahead of time and get it on my calendar so we can do it and I can feel good about it. So personality impacts and interfaces with all of these. And that's why I think, again, this book's going to really help a lot of people who already have the basic idea down, but have never really thought seriously about how personality impacts this.
Well, even in those scenarios you were talking about, empathy plays a big role in that, you know, because we just immediately get defensive when you're trying and you try to make an expression of a love language in the way that you think, you know, this is the way that this is what you like, and it's rejection. And it can feel really, you just immediately, everything turns internal. How do we step out of that and step into empathy for our partner?
I think we have to recognize that two people who marry each other, even if they're just a close friendship, they're going to have differences because we are human. No two humans are alike. We're going to have different ideas. We're going to have different emotions. We're going to have different interpretations of what is said. And if we're ever going to have a loving, caring relationship, we're going to have to listen to each other and listen empathetically. And by that, I mean, listen and try to look at the world through their eyes. Whatever they're talking about, try to find out. I want to understand what they're thinking and what they're feeling. I want to see the world and I want to see this situation the way they see it. And that means you have to ask questions. You know, if your spouse shares that they're having a struggle at work today and they tell you a little bit about it and you say, well, what you ought to do is go da, 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 you know, and they're feeling inside, they don't understand me. They've always got the answer. They always tell me what I ought to do. They don't empathize with me. They don't feel with me. They're not really understanding me. So we're not by nature empathetic. We're all self-centered. But we've got to learn how when a person shares anything, positive or negative, we want to ask questions. Tell me more about that, honey. I want to understand what you're saying. That sounds exciting. Tell me about it. And if we become listeners, when the other person's talking, we can get to the place where we can say after a bit, well, you know, honey, I can see how that makes sense. You know, I understand what you're saying. It makes sense to me too. And you may even disagree with what they're saying, but you express it. I can see what you're saying. I can see it makes sense because it always makes sense in their head. You don't have to agree with them, you know, but they want to know that you hear them and understand them. And then you can say, honey, could I share my perspective on that? And then if they become a listener and they hear what your perspective and they ask you questions, then they can say, well, I can see, honey, how that makes sense too, you know. And if it's a decision that has to be made, then you can say, well, okay, how can we solve this? We see it differently, but we each understand each other. So how can we solve the problem? So you spend your energy solving the problem rather than spending your energy trying to win an argument. You know, I've always said, if you win an argument with your spouse, you know, they just say, okay, have it your way. They won the argument. You won the argument. They lost. It's no fun to live with a loser. Why would you create one? We're on the same team. We're not enemies.
Okay, that is going to have to be a Post-it note on my computer. It's no fun to live with a loser. That's so true. But you know, and sometimes you have to make that choice. Do I want to be right? Or do I want to be in right relationship? I've heard that said before, and that is sometimes the choice that we make. And one of the things that really intrigued me, Dr. Chapman, was, you know, I do a lot of work in pediatrics about trauma, and we talk about trauma responses, but you talk about this empathy response that's kind of similar. It's fluent, faltering, frustrated, or frozen in demonstrating empathy. But I think empathy is such a key to unlock emotional vulnerability. Walk us through these, what does this mean? The fluent, faltering, frustrated, and frozen.
Well, I think those are just different ways of responding to the other person when they're sharing something with us. We can be frozen, and we're not even open to thinking in another way. It's my way is always the right way, and all that sort of thing. And I think just those differences, and we all have those differences, whatever label you put to them, we all have those differences. So let's not demand that our spouse be like us or think the same way we think or have the same opinions we have. No, two are better than one. That's why we want to, whatever the topic, we want to have perspective on that each of us have, and it will be different. But we're going to enrich each other's life by sharing that. But if one of you just kind of plugs up and just kind of withdraws, and whatever the other person does is fine, you just accept it, even though you don't like it, but you don't talk about it. You're just frozen. You're never going to have the kind of relationship you want to have, which is a loving, caring relationship in which you have the sense that I'm known by them and they're known by me. And we're with each other, even though we have differences. We're together, and we're there for each other. That's the goal. That's what we're shooting for. But it takes an attitude of empathy to get there. And we can't. If our spouse says something about us that we feel like is a put down, then we get defensive. By nature, we get defensive. And they say, well, da 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 da. Now we're into an argument, trying to convince them that they shouldn't feel that way about us. Yeah.
I'm going to say that's rarely successful. Yet we still give it our best effort. Why? Why do we do that?
So, if that's their perspective, it's their perspective. So just kind of look at it through their eyes and see how they could have come to that perspective. No, you don't like it. It doesn't make you feel good that they have that perspective about something you did or didn't do. But listen long enough to find out, what their perspective is, and recognize it's okay for them to have a perspective. Of course, the culture doesn't help us, because in our culture today, we're just shooting each other. Verbal wars. Everybody's telling how awful other people are, but we do that on the personal level as well, and we've got to stop doing that on the personal level. We're not there to put the other person down or to condemn them. We want to share with each other our perspectives, whatever they are, and we want to listen empathetically so that we can walk away from whatever the conversation was with the sense that we understand each other and we're there for each other.
You're so right, Dr. Chapman, that the culture doesn't help. I was actually having this conversation with my daughter over lunch, and I was telling her how I had been, scrolling through social media or looking at the news feed, and the word that I was seeing just pop up over and over and over again is actually the word eviscerated. And it would say like, oh, so-and-so eviscerated this person in their response. And it was like a celebratory thing. And I was getting these visions of like, even ancient Colosseum and people are literally eviscerated there and there's people cheering. And that is the kind of culture that we have. Like, oh yeah, burn, a good burn, like, oh, good comeback, clap back. We have so many cultural words to describe that. Like how, we just have that verbal prowess, and that's celebrated. It's much, much harder to take the attitude of Philippians 2. And now I'm just getting the 2-minute warning here. And as my team says, radio is so rude. We're about to get cut off here, Dr. Chapman. We're going to get cut off in the middle of the conversation. But in the last 2 minutes, tell people, what is your last word of advice and encouragement? And how can they find more about the love language that matters most?
Well, I would say if they're a Christian, ask God to give them the attitude of Christ toward their spouse. That's what changed my own marriage in the early years when we had our own struggles. Lord, give me the attitude that Jesus had. He washed the feet of his disciples, and he said, you call me leader, and yes, I am, but the leader serves. So ask God to give you the attitude of Christ toward your spouse. I think that's a good starting point because that gets you the right attitude. And I would just say if they want to know more about the book or anything about me, you can find it at the website 5lovelanguages.com, the number 5lovelanguages.com. Click on resources, you can see all the books. Click on the quizzes, you can see all the quizzes. There's a lot of stuff there that will help you. So I would just encourage them to make the most of what we've talked about today. And I want to thank you for what you're doing, because you're seeking to enrich the lives of the people who are listening. So keep up the good work.
Well, Dr. Chapman, you just practice what you preach. You gave me words of affirmation, and I will take them every day and twice on Sunday. Thank you so much for all that you do. It's the love language that matters most. I took the survey. You should too. And listen, wherever you are, however you're feeling loved or not, I pray the Lord will bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. And I'll see you back here tomorrow.